Pilgrims we've journeyed, for we have been told the world is my parish. Come answer the call. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu.
Imagine that you are standing in the pouring rain on a muddy hillside because you've been told there will be a miracle in the sky at noon for everyone to see. 70,000 people are with you, all waiting in anticipation. The appointed time comes and goes. Nothing happens. People begin to mumble under their breath about a hoax as they slowly turn to leave. Then a shout goes up from the crowd. The sun appears to be falling from the sky as though it were crashed into the earth. There are screams. Some people panic. Suddenly, the sun returns to its original position in the sky. The rain has stopped, and the ground is dry. None of the spectators is wet anymore. Newspaper headlines around the world flash photographs and bylines from a small city in Portugal called Fatima. Hello, I'm Father Ken Roberts again, and here we are in Fatima, Portugal. This is our second country and the second stage of our pilgrim route that we're going on. And we're here on the 75th anniversary of the final apparition at Fatima. October the 13th, 1917 was that final apparition when the sun danced. A quick preview of what happened here. 1911 was a revolution which threw out the royal family and persecuted the church. It was the forerunner of communism, in a sense, because it was anti-clerical and Marxist in origin. In 1917, 3 young children, a little boy and 2 girls, claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary in the Covedaria. But an interesting background, this is not Fatima, in fact. It's the Covedaria. Fatima is a few miles from here. And the origin of the town of Fatima was a Muslim girl married a Portuguese aristocrat back in the 12th century. But he married her on conditions that she become a Christian. And she was baptized, and her name as a Christian was called Iria, this is the Covedaria. So this place was named after her. I thought it was rather coincidental that Mary would appear in the town, or the plateau, named after as a Christian, and now it has the name of Fatima, which when she was a Muslim. And that's also very good for unity because Fatima was the daughter of Muhammad, and the only 2 women mentioned in the Quran are Fatima and Mary. And so Muslims can really relate to this place, Our Lady of Fatima. They think of Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad. And of course, Iria is where Mary actually appeared after the woman had become a Christian, in the Covedaria. Now, of course, we refer to the whole thing as Fatima. When Mary appeared in 1917 on May the 13th at 12 o'clock, she continued to come each month on the 13th till the October the 13th when the sun danced. But in those messages, she foretold that a force of atheism would come from Russia that would conquer the world if we didn't pray and cause persecution on the church. What I find extraordinary about that, in May of 1917, Russia was still Christian. In fact, Russia was still Christian in the beginning of October of 17. Holy Mother Russia would persecute the church. Holy Mother Russia would have a force of atheism. Impossible. But it did, didn't it? And yet Mary foretold it. And the children were also shown a vision of a future pope with his cassock covered in blood, clutching his chest in St. Peter's Square. I remember reading that in the 50s. And I was even asked to explain what it meant. And we took it as symbolic, that but maybe the Pope wasn't actually going to be attacked, but it was a symbol of the church, that the church would be attacked. We know now, don't we, that the Pope was attacked, and it was on May the 13th at 12 o'clock, the actual day and time of the apparition. So you see, that's where we are now, and I think it's an important place. And for the rest of this time we're going to be showing you, you'll see lots of things happening here on this 75th anniversary. 75 years later, the sun is gentle and the skies are blue. But this time the crowd has grown from the original 70,000 to an estimated 750,000. Some even come on their knees.
Fatima is a story about Mary. It's not a story about Lucia. It's not a story about a visionary. It's a story about Mary and Mary's love for her son and wanting us to love her son and wanting us to know her son and love him better and love people in the world. It's a story about the gospel. The main message is to pray the rosary, to pray, to honor Mary, and to worship God, to give him all our love.
Among her predictions to the children of Fatima, the Blessed Virgin Mary promised an end to communism in Russia if the country were consecrated to her. Pope did just that years later, and years later Russia was a free nation without a single bloody gunshot fired. Today also marks another anniversary at Fatima. 45 years ago, the International Pilgrim Virgin statue left Portugal on a mission to carry the Fatima messages all around the world. She is now returning.
The Pilgrim Virgin statue left Fatima in 1947 as a result of a resolution made at an International Youth Congress to carry a statue of Our Lady processionally towards Russia. Our Lady had promised the conversion of Russia. And these young people, thinking visually, thought, well, let's take a statue of Our Lady and carry it across Europe. And they meant on people's shoulders, not in cars and stuff. And many wonders occurred.
The statue has wept several times. I know there are 22 cases documented when the statue has wept. There are probably many more. One case I heard about took place in Asbury Park, New Jersey. The statue was in a candlelight procession in the streets, and as it passed under the street lights, they would turn off. And the police wanted to know how the people running the procession were doing that to the street lights, and of course they were doing nothing. It was happening automatically. And after the statue passed, they would turn back on. The first trips, I believe, to the communist bloc nations, where religious articles were not allowed to be taken into the country. And the statue was in its blue bunting bag. I think there was one occasion where it was in an automobile and another where it was in a bus. And when the border guards ordered the people out of the vehicles and searched them, even though the statue was there as big as life, they were not able to see it. And it passed in successfully.
The people in the car obviously were still able to see it.
They were still able to see it. She was commissioned in 1947. She was blessed in the Covidaria in Fatima by the Bishop of Fatima to travel around the world spreading the Fatima message.
I find very impressive the waving of the handkerchiefs. It's very moving to see all those thousands and thousands of people waving affection to the Mary. But you have to remember, they're not waving to a statue. They're waving to a statue that symbolizes Mary's presence. It's to Mary they're waving, and it's to Mary they're saying goodbye. It's just after noon, the time of the miracle of the sun. White doves are released. One of the doves comes to rest on the icon of Jesus Christ, King of all nations, and it doesn't leave.
I was holding the picture of Jesus Christ, King of all nations, when the dove landed on top of it. What astounded me, not so much that the dove landed, but that it stayed there. We changed partners, and it continued to stay there. And that's when I think I've realized that there was something more than just a bird lighting on a picture or on a portrait or a painting. And I don't know that I was overwhelmed, but I was deeply impressed.
We were standing right by the images.
And one dove stood right there over the...
When the clock...
First it circled over the crowd, and then it landed on Jesus as King of all nations at exactly 1 o'clock.
When the miracle of the sun occurred 75 years ago.
Oh,
And it
At
stayed
that
there
same
for
time.
10 minutes.
As this day draws to an end, the sun slips behind blood-red clouds and disappears. A quiet end to the anniversary of one of the most famous accepted miracles of the church. But the message of Fatima survived even its little messengers. 2 of the children died shortly after the apparitions. The third, Lucia, is still alive and lives in a cloistered Carmelite community in Portugal. She sees no one.
In the 1100s, a woman who was having difficulties with her unfaithful husband was praying for a solution, and feeling her prayers were going unanswered, she consulted a sorceress who, she said, help me to solve this problem. The sorceress said, I will conjure for you a solution if you will bring to me a consecrated host. The woman hesitated, but feeling this pain of her desperation, she consented. The following Sunday, she came to the church, attended confession, and then received communion. But instead of consuming the host, she took the host, consecrated host, out of her mouth and wrapped it in her veil and proceeded quickly out of the church. Walking down the street, nervously, people began to stop her, saying, "Are you injured? Can we help you?" "Why?" she asked, and they said, because she was bleeding. She looked out at her veil, which was at this point saturated with blood. Fearfully, she ran home and unwrapped the veil, placing the consecrated host in a small chest in her bedroom. Later on that night, when her husband returned home, the 2 of them were awakened by a glowing light emanating from the room where the chest was contained. They awoke. She confessed in tears to her husband what she had done, and they both spent the evening in adoration. The next morning, they summoned the bishop, who lived about 2 blocks away, who came to their home, transported the blessed miraculous host from their home to the church with procession, after which they had enclosed the host, which had turned into human flesh and drops of human blood, and enclosed it in a wax pyx. The next morning, with the church officials arriving for further investigation, a second miracle was found to have occurred, where the wax pyx was found broken in the tabernacle and replaced inside a solid crystal pyx enclosing the Holy Eucharist, which had transformed into blood and flesh. From that moment on, this church which had been known as St. Stephen, is now known as the Church of the Holy Miracle, and people from all over the world, particularly those making their pilgrimages to Fatima, now come here as a side trip often to venerate this most wonderful miracle of our Eucharist. Time and time again, I've seen cold and lukewarm Catholics come into this church and leave in tears. And you can see that their hearts were really rent and touched and have gone home with a fire enlightening in them for Eucharistic devotion. And I'm a living witness of that myself. So I want to thank our Blessed Mother, Fatima, for our Lord, for allowing this great miracle to occur. In spite of the circumstances which would be considered so blasphemous, our Lord worked a great miracle to instill our faith, and it is still preserved in this holy church after all these centuries. I was a nominal Christian. I mean, I was Catholic, went to church on Sundays. It wasn't anything special about me. It still isn't. But we came into the church, I didn't know what to expect. I believed with my mind that it was true, but there was no heart sense involved. And I came in and I looked at the church, which was very dark and simple and plain and very poor parish, much poorer than it seems to be now even. And the priest held the monstrance, which containing this actual miracle host, which had changed into flesh and blood. It was dark, I couldn't see very well, but I kissed it and I said I believed, and I left. And I wasn't 1 foot out the door when my heart was just rent open, and I was just flooded with tears, and I just sensed that this truly is the Lord our God has really done this for us. He has really makes himself physically available, not just God in heaven, but any Catholic church in the world. God is physically available to us wherever we go. And that to me is just so tremendous a gift that we should, we don't need to come all the way to Fatima to find this out.
The miraculous hosts of Santarém. Laboratory tests have proven the flesh is human. We're here at the top of a hill at Ourém. Ourém is very important in the history of Portugal. One time, at the time of the Turks, like back in the Middle Ages, the Turks, the Moors, occupied Portugal. And this castle was occupied by the Moors. And the first king of Portugal, who was then a count, marched his army here. But what he did, he had trained them to sleep in the trees so they could be hidden. And kind of like a medieval commando unit. And when they arrived, he sent a messenger up here to the Moors, saying that if they would come out of the castle and come down and fight a battle, whoever won could have the whole of Portugal. At that time, the Count had most of Portugal. And so what happened was they looked down and saw a small army. They didn't see the ones hiding in the trees. And they came out of the castle with great force. In the meantime, the ones that had been hiding captured the castle and raised the flag of Portugal. And that's how this was conquered. And it began the history of Portugal as a kingdom. And the Count of here became the King of Portugal. "75 years after the visions at Portugal, 1,000 American pilgrims sing of peace in the Cathedral of Ourém. But what about Mary's messages to those 3 little children so many years ago? The messages of Fatima were simple: conversion through prayer and fasting. And among her messages, a promise of salvation to those who make the first 5 Saturday devotions for 5 consecutive months. But the Blessed Virgin Mary foretold of a godless Russia which spread her errors throughout the world. She also said that through prayer, Russia would be converted. That prophecy has recently begun its fulfillment. But these same pilgrims who sing of peace around the world will soon leave Portugal with the messages of Fatima, the love of the Virgin Mary, to fly into the heart of Russia. They will crown the Virgin Mary, Queen of all Russia, right in the middle of Red Square, across from Lenin's tomb.
Today,
We hope you've enjoyed the sights and the sounds of Fatima. But as we leave, it's not just a thing to be enjoyed. You know, all the pilgrims here, 1,000 of us from our own particular tour, the Alliance for the Two Hearts, but there's literally other thousands here of people that came on foot. But you see, what good is it if our lives don't change? Mary didn't come to entertain us. She didn't come on to do a Cecil B. DeMille production. She came to change the hearts of people. She's asked that we convert. But she's asking that in all of our apparitions. Convert, turn back to God. If you really believe there is a God, and we do, then we should be praying. And if we really are praying, then our life changes. And so if we convert and pray, then the world will be spared. It's not that God is going to chastise the world. It's the fruits of our own evil that chastises the world. You know, when we think of the diseases and the pollution of our world, God didn't pollute the world, we did. God didn't cause the diseases, we did, by the way we polluted our world and contaminated our foods and our air, the air we breathe and the water we drink. And then we blame God for disasters. We are bringing on our own disasters. But if we convert and change, there'll be peace. And that's basically what the message of all the shrines are, especially at Fatima. Pray for peace. Pray to do penance and to change, and to come back to do those Saturday masses, to sacrifice, to pray the rosary. Are we really doing that? If you watch this show and don't, then what good was it? But if this has made you say, I'm going to start doing something, don't think you don't count, because you do. Look what happened to Russia. It's now no longer the Soviet Union. Look what happened to the Berlin Wall. It's down. The two Germanys are one. Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, no longer communists, not one gunshot fired. The only weapons used were prayer. Your prayer does count.
One tragic note about our trip to Portugal involved one of the bus drivers on the pilgrimage. He would not permit the Pilgrim Virgin statue to ride in one of the seats of the bus, and insisted the statue ride on the floor or in the baggage compartment. He even pointed to a space on the floor near the front seat where she should lie. After intensive arguments from the Portuguese honor guard, the statue took the front seat on the bus. An hour into the bus ride, the driver collapsed at the wheel from a stroke. He was laid down at the very spot on the floor at the feet of Mary. Doctors speculate he is probably paralyzed for life. In addition, almost 50 pilgrims were now stranded on a dark country road, an hour from the airport at about 5 in the morning. Mary did not forget her children.
You know what's in that garage over there? Another bus. Same size as this.
No. Oh.
So the only thing they're wondering is if they can get the papers for this bus and the authorization from the company, then their driver will take this bus. Otherwise, we'll have to transfer to that bus.
All the luggage and...
Yeah, all the luggage. So we're hoping that we can just get the chauffeur instead of...
I mean, we stopped that...
We stopped right opposite a bus. An empty bus that's not booked for the day.
So what's happened, John?
Well, now they're just trying to get a hold of the company to see whether they get authorization either to put a driver on this bus or to use this other bus. The bus is available.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You know what else was incredible? Yesterday, the driver wanted to put Mary on the floor. I mean, he would never on the seat.
And he's on the floor.
He was on the floor right at her feet.
Isn't
Right
that
where she
amazing?
was.
Oh, isn't that? Oh, well, he didn't mean it out of disrespect. He just...
I know, but the thing is that just goes to show. They had Mary in a different seat before, in the back. It's the first time we put her in that seat. When you laid him on the floor, he was lying right at her feet.
That's something.
poriam à disposição o motorista leva nesse autocarro e guardamos aquele carro. Quando eles vierem pegar o outro carro, tem que pagar.
You know what they're going to do? We're going to use this bus. They're going to keep that bus until they pay them for the trip.
é para depois entregar isso ao João, que é para depois não dá problema.
Mas eu envias por isto?
Não trazia nada. Isto deve ser tudo que me transfere. Acho que é uma orientação de Fátima. Aquele senhor sabe. Vem de Fátima, não é?
Não. Viemos de Figueira, passamos por Fátima, Figueira e agora vamos...
We all found it very remarkable that at the very place where he stopped was a bus company. Right across the street there was an empty bus parked in a garage. And we made arrangements and we were on our way and we arrived at the airport just in time for our group to continue, that was the last one of course, to continue right on the flow, and our flight took off on time.
Did you enjoy this tape? Did you find it inspiring? Would you like others to share in that inspiration? Well then, be a partner with us, because these tapes are viewer supported. You can obtain a copy by writing to the above address.